Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Podnutz Pro. I am your host, Marvin B., and we are coming at you live on our usual Friday lunchtime spot. And today I am joined by Kevin Boynton, the computer doctor of Richmond, and we're just going to chat and see what happens here and talk about how things are going. So, Kevin, let me go ahead and ask you officially, how's it going?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for asking, Marvin. I was telling you earlier that for the first several weeks of quarantine, man, it was just slam busy. We were helping a lot of our clients either get up and running for remote work from home, or the clients that were already set up, maybe helping them refine some of their processes and that kind of thing. And I was even able to onboard an existing break fix client onto our managed service program, because now they needed to be able to work more remotely, and the only way we could properly support them was to be able to remotely work with them. So that was a great way to finally get them to pull the trigger for signing up with our MSP program. But it's definitely slowed down a bit in the past couple of weeks. We've suspended all of our on-site residential work, which is not a big deal. I mean, that our residential work helps keep my other technician pretty busy. So it's slowed things down a fair amount for him. But we've been doing more pickups and deliveries of some residential and of course business computers, that kind of thing. But it's just staying kind of a little bit slower, but steady. So not too bad, all things considered.
All right. So, two questions. One, what's the percentage of your residential business in total for your whole business?
Well, in terms of how much time it consumes, I would say maybe about 20 to 30% of how much time it consumes in total for the company.
Okay. All right.
Like I said, it
That's not
consumes
too
more
bad.
time. Yeah, it consumes more time for my technician than it does for me. But we've got a residential, MSP plan. And that's one of those things where, once you kind of set it up, there's not a whole lot of maintenance involved. I mean, yeah, you'll get clients that that are on the plan that'll occasionally come to you with questions or printer problems, things like that. But it doesn't really consume a whole lot of time. But it's definitely a good revenue generator, because I have definitely evaluated over the past few years as I've been, talking more with other technicians like yourselves and at some of these unconventions and so forth, and thought about killing off the residential plan. But I'll be honest, it helps keep the slow times a little busier, and it's definitely still well worth it in our environment.
Right. So the customer that you onboarded, you said that they were break fix for a long time and you onboarded them onto your managed plan specifically because of the working remote, or what pushed them over the edge?
Absolutely, yeah. Now this client, they're actually probably either my oldest or second oldest business client that I've been working with, what, 12, 13 years, something like that. And they've always been break fix, way back when that's all we had, and that was fine. And then over the past, 4 or 5 years, as we've been, migrating into an MSP or more into the MSP type of plans, he just never really saw the value in it. They're a small financial advising firm, and I would propose it pretty much every year when his antivirus was coming up for renewal, and we'd talk about it and talk about how you could save this, you could get better services there, but he just never really felt the great need to make the switch. But when suddenly now they need to have basically everybody in their office working from home, the only way we really could properly support them and get them to then be able to remote into the office properly and manage all of that I told him, I said, we definitely need to sign up with our MSP program. And he gave me no problem. He said, do whatever you got to do. So it because of the quarantine, I was able to onboard them.
Okay. So it's interesting because I think a lot of customers are like that, where they don't see the value until they absolutely need it.
Yep.
And it's
Until
a
there's a
matter
fire
of,
burning right in front of them.
right, right. Because I've got a customer I'm dealing with now where they've been break fix for a while, and I got them on a partial plan where I'm monitoring and maintaining their server, but not their desktops.
Right.
And they are in the midst of renewing their insurance, and they are now adding, I think they've had E&O insurance, but they want to add a cyber insurance rider on the policy. So they sent me a list of about 20 questions that their insurer asked them. And of course, they all have to do with, antivirus management, firewall management, and all of these things. And I said, well, in order for us to answer yes to any of these questions for you, got to be on a managed plan.
Yep.
And
I think that might become more and more common as businesses are looking more towards cyber insurance of different kinds.
right. Well, it's funny because, in their mind, they thinking, well, we'll just ask for it and then get it. And they're like, well, what does it really do? I said, well, here's the problem. Forget what it does. Understand that you're only going to get a benefit if you can prove to the insurance company that you did everything reasonable to stop it, whether it's a ransomware attack, whether it's a virus, whether it's theft,
Right.
any of those things. You've got to be able to prove that you made steps to protect yourself. And if you don't, they're never going to pay you.
Right.
So
Oh, yeah.
in order to prove that, now you got to pay me. So
Yep. I've had, I think, 2 or 3 clients over the past handful of years that we were able to get on boarded because of PCI compliance needs.
okay.
Similar kind of, questionnaire that they've got to go through saying that they're doing all these things. And, I remember sitting down with one of the business owners over their decent sized plumbing company. And I said, well, you're not doing any of these things. Well, can't you just answer, so we can get the, pass this PCI compliance self check? And I said, well, I can answer it if you do it. If you're not going to do it, you're going to fail the self check and you're not going to get to the next step with your credit card processor. I said the only way we can properly do this is we got to put in a UTM firewall in place, and then we've got to get proper managed security and backups and whatever else was involved at the time. And he begrudgingly moved forward and signed up with us. And they've been a pretty darn good client ever since.
Nice. I've had 2 in the last 3 months that I've had to send an agreement with a estimated, monthly service agreement, and one I never heard from again. And so it's interesting. I was going to ask you, do you present, when these things come up, do you present them with an agreement that they have to sign? Are you doing a master service agreement or anything like that?
So we'll typically tailor our MSP plan per the client. We do not go in and totally rip everything out and say, you got to do it our way. We'll try and tailor it to the client's needs around what we can do. We use Untangle for our UTMs. If we need a managed network, we'll usually go with Unify. But, in many clients, we'll use just standard unmanaged switches. I know that probably sends a chill up your spine, but
well, they're not terrible, but I can't use my fluke on them.
Exactly. I know that's just got to scare you.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
We use SolarWinds for our RMM platform. So we'll of course get them onboarded with that. So we've got some things that we've got to do our way. But depending on what the client's needs, we try and keep things as simple as possible, and of course also as affordable as possible, without at the same time shooting ourselves in the foot.
Right.
And some business owners are very receptive to that. Some business owners are like dentists and they don't want to spend any money at all. And they will do everything they can to say, no, that's not necessary. So what we'll do is once we kind of propose we call it a partnership plan, because we feel like we are really partnering with our clients to, help manage their IT and help them be more successful. So when we do that, we don't sign up long-term contracts. We just ask for 30 days advance notification if you need to make any major changes or cancellations, which are very rare for us. I think we've had 2 or 3 small business clients, decide to go elsewhere, and most of them we were happy that they were going. One of them I was sad to see go, and it ultimately came down to some miscommunication between myself and the client that they decided to go elsewhere. So it was more on me that they decided to leave. But the other 2 that come to mind, I was happy that they decided they didn't want to use our services anymore. One went to Office Max Managed Services, and I
now that runs a chill up my spine.
Right. I mean, and who knows? They might do just fine with them. They're a small insurance office, 5 or 6 people, and they were actually somewhat distributed. They had a couple employees in other states. Don't know how that's going to go for them, but he was one that I proposed a plan to, and then didn't hear anything back for probably about 1.5 years.
Okay.
And I never bothered, kind of stalking him down, saying, "Hey, what's up? What's up?" I just kind of, let it simmer, and asked him once or twice over the following months, hey, are you interested? And yeah, I'll get back to you. So I just let it go, and then he finally got back to me. I think it was actually back in just this past August, and said, "Yeah, I'm ready." So we signed him up. We got them all squared away. And right off the bat, I told them that, your peer server, just a simple workstation, it's running Windows 7. We need to formulate a plan to get that changed out. Fast forward all the way into, mid-January, I'm telling them, now what was a smoldering fire or smoldering, ashes, now a burning fire. We need to do this. And I think he used that as an excuse to say, I don't want to use you anymore. I don't want to spend money if I don't have to, and went to Office Max. So I was okay with him going elsewhere.
As you were talking, I'm trying to Google what the Office Max managed service plan is. I don't actually see it. So
Yeah.
Did you happen to, they didn't give you a chance to counter?
No. He's like, I think we can save a fair amount of money using them. And I said, well, all I said in the email back to him, I was like, well, good luck to you.
Here we go. Yeah. IT as a service. As your fully managed IT service provider, our dedicated team provides a full managed service technology support, including live remote support, monitoring, and on-site services.
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
It does.
That's just like what we do.
Absolutely. So they don't have anything, at least on this page, as to the cost. So I wonder, we'll look that up later.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure how they tailor that for the clients.
Yeah.
Like I said, I told him, good luck. And I know his employees, when we first jumped on with them, they were super excited because they had been using, the boss, he'd been their IT guy for all these years, and crap wasn't working, and computers are slow, and all the rest of that. And I remember talking to one of the employees, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he finally did this. We've been asking him for years to get proper support." And I bet they're crying in their over their keyboards right now. But
yeah,
like I said, good luck to you.
Because what he probably did was he went back to being the support and only would call Office Max if
Exactly.
he couldn't figure it out. So
yep.
Once the cheapest backup support.
Right, I bet they're still running Windows 7 on that peer server.
I think a lot of people are still running Windows 7 on their stuff.
Oh yeah.
That's all right. Now, so I saw in the Facebook that you had put a couple of questions in some of the groups, one of which was all about VoIP services. And did you get any good feedback? I didn't go back and follow that post.
Not a ton, to be honest with you,
Okay.
and I might need to pursue it a little bit more. You and I talked several weeks ago, and you had another gentleman on that they do voice over IP for MSPs like us. What was the name of that company?
So Connect Me Voice,
Yeah,
I think
Connect Me
was the one that
Voice.
we had. Yes.
Yep, yep. And I had looked at Freedom Voice,
Hmm.
GoDaddies, and I saw them at one of the conventions a year or so ago, and kind of looked into it. And much like you, I'd kind of always steered away from it. I dabbled in it a little bit a few years back, but it seemed like a kind of a big pain in the ass. Um, and I decided it wasn't for me. But over the past couple years, through listening to the podcast and seeing other guys talking about it and how it's a great add to their revenue, plus it also helps really keep the customers solidified with your services. That's kind of one of the more important things to me.
Right.
Just it makes you more important to the customer. You're doing more than just their computers, you're doing their phones too. So if they ever had any issues or whatever, it's nice for them to come to you versus saying, all right, I'm just going to look elsewhere.
Right.
So I've been
Well,
looking into it a little bit, and with some of the problems that you've had and like Mike Smith has talked about with Freedom Voice, the fact that you can't see when another person in your office is on the phone, I just decided that they weren't for me. I couldn't stand behind them enough to then give that service to my clients.
all right. Yep.
Um,
So the busy lamp field is a big feature that, I've been asking for it for the customers that I have. We haven't switched away from them, but that is a big feature.
right. Um, So yeah, the Connect Me voice sounded good, but I tried contacting them, for their partnership program, and haven't heard anything back.
Really?
And
Well,
so,
let me make a note of that because I just heard back from them about maybe a week ago because I usually try
okay,
to follow up with, vendors that are guests and ask them, how did it go? Anybody respond? And they said, oh yeah, great response, blah, blah, blah. But
interesting.
if they're not calling people back, that's a problem.
Yeah, I shot them an email. They have like a partner at Connect Me Voice or something
Right.
like that. Saying how do I sign up? How do I demo? How do I get more information? Do you have any webinars? How can I find out more about using your service? And haven't heard anything back. And that's been 2-3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Because I mean, it sounded like a very attractive service during your podcast. So I was very intrigued. Um, so, oh well.
All right.
But
Well, if anybody else has any feedback on not just Connect Me Voice, but any vendor ever, just always let me know because not that I use every single vendor, but for the most part, if they're on the show, they've been recommended by somebody
right,
in our circles. So outside of vendors that lie and steal, most vendors are ones that we should all look at. I mean, not to say that Freedom Voice is my only VoIP provider. I actually have another provider for my office phones. I didn't switch over to Freedom Voice, although I do have one of their phones back there. But I'm still looking. I'm always, I may not want to make a change all the time, but I'm always looking. And part of the reason I look is to try to give feedback for people in the channel, and
right,
people, other techs, I know that we can all kind of reach out to each other and say, hey, who do you use? But, we need to have a place where we can always, get information. And so I am looking at some others just so that I can have them as a reference point because not every vendor is for every tech, not everybody
right.
likes Freedom Voice. Not everybody likes Connect Me Voice or Citricom or, who are Intermedia is out there. But they may work for somebody.
Right. Now, I did see several people. Now that you mentioned it in Facebook, talk about what was it? Open PBX. No, what was it? And my
I've not heard of that one.
no, it was, and unfortunately, I cannot. Now finally Facebook's loading. I've been trying for like the past hour on my computer and it wasn't loading. I'll
Working
see
on
if
the
I can pull it
Facebook.
up. Yeah, let's see if I can pull it up while we're talking. But Yeah, several people talked about whatever that offering is. I dabbled a little bit in with Intermedia's offering
Hmm.
a few years ago. I've got one client. They are not an MSP client. They're just break fix, but I've got them set up with Intermedia, but through like their referral plan.
Okay.
It's not through white label, because actually originally that customer, we'd proposed a partnership plan, an MSP plan, and everything seemed like it was going to be great. They were a new startup company, and we were going to actually they were going to be our first resold VoIP customer. We were going to do it all for them. And at like kind of the last minute, as we were getting ready to get everything up and running for them, he said, "Nah, you know what? I think I'm just going to stick with break fix." So at that point, I didn't see the value in just selling him the phone service. So
Right.
I ended up switching it over to the referral plan, and it went okay. I will say it seemed a bit clunky, getting them set up for Intermedia's voice, but they've been with them for about 2 years now at least, and I know the client says he's happy with the overall service, um, but the setup just seemed pretty clunky to me. So I haven't really looked back at them, but I do know that some people are, I guess, big fans of using Intermedia.
Well, they've come up on my radar, and there are a couple of people in the group that are kind of they're not jumping all in yet, but they are using them, and I'm sure we'll get a report on that soon. I did sign up for their partner plan just so I can get in and see things and maybe get a
Yeah,
phone and play with it. And I'll be honest, their onboarding has taken me quite a while because they have uh, I don't know if it's called a university or you've got to go through their certification
yeah,
and do videos. And I'll be honest, I start a video and then I won't finish it because I'll either be in the middle of taking a phone call
right.
or this and that. So I think I'm halfway through. So if the intermedia rep is listening, I'm sorry. I'll finish it at some point and get myself set up. So
That does actually sound familiar from way back when I looked at them. Like I said, there's a couple years ago, and I understand the value in getting trained and so forth, the intermediate way, but at the same time, I don't have a ton of time. I'm for the most part a solo guy here. I don't have a ton of time to sit there and go through a lot of training for what other providers can get you up and running much faster, much easier. That's
right,
kind of one of the most important things to me is whatever service provider I have, obviously they've got to have great, solutions. They can't be, having outages like Freedom Voice has had a handful of, but it's got to be easy. That's kind of one of the more important things to me as a service provider. It's got to be, easy to set up and onboard new clients. Um,
well, speaking of time, I mean, I know that you have a tech that works for you. Is he part-time? Is he
Part time.
okay? So most of the work is you, which like me, even though I service only business clients, I have subs, but for the most part, it's just me. And the
Right.
time factor in learning and researching and all of that stuff has always been an issue for me. How has that been for you?
Um, he's pretty flexible in what he can do. He doesn't have anywhere near the skill level that I do, of course. But right now we've got a dentist office that we're getting ready to onboard and change out several of their systems. Actually, next week because they're going to be opening up the following week. So right now, while we're working from home, I took over several computers to him actually just yesterday, and he's going to go through and get them all prepped and ready to go. And we'll go out there next week. That'll actually be kind of our first big appointment since, in terms of on site, since this all happened. Most of what we've been doing has all been remote um, with very minimal on site stuff. But, he's very good at helping out with some of the little things that I either don't have time or patience for. Like figuring out certain patch management issues in SolarWinds.
Right.
It's one of the things that I've been having him keep himself busy on the past few weeks. I just basically said, all right, you know, start figuring stuff out. Jump in, look at some webinars for SolarWinds. Some things that we've always wanted to do, but we've never really taken the time to figure out some of the other things that we know SolarWinds can do. So he's been having a good time actually learning some things like that. So I've been able to put him on some kind of little project work, things like that. But yeah, I am trying to find my post. Here we go.
All right.
On the VoIP.
Yeah, that's always a big thing. Is I mean, I'm toying with right now hiring a tech and having them just sit in the back room and sit in front of that monitor and do all those little things, and all the dashboard stuff that needs to get done, even the documentation. I mean, it's an ongoing thing. All right, you said you found a post?
Yeah, free PBX is the one that came up a few times that people have set up, and it sounds like let's see, Matt Ingram is saying, I've done several free PBX installs with VoIP. It's an expensive setup, but monthly bills are dirt cheap.
Okay.
Those upfront costs can be a turnoff, and that's why I sell Freedom Voice too. So, but I posted this up on a couple different groups, including the MSP Unplugged, and several people talked about free PBX.
All right, I'll have to look into that. But I also know that one of the big problems that people have with selecting VoIP, and going true white label, is collecting the sales taxes. And that's always been a bugaboo. And I know one of the problems that we went through last year is that the state of Florida allowed for counties to charge different surtaxes. So we have the state sales tax, and then most counties will have like a 1% surcharge on top of that. Yeah. Some have a 0.5%, some have another half above the 1%, and trying to keep track of all the different county taxes, and then you've got the FCC tax and all of that stuff. So I would wonder if the free PBX, if you're responsible for everything, if you're collecting the taxes.
Sorry, I've got the hassles of working from home in the quarantine right now. I've got a child on the other side of the screen who's trying to get my attention.
Oh, put him on screen here. Hey.
Say hi.
Hello, how are you? Did you get your schoolwork done today? But is she ready for lunch?
She wants to go out, but she needs to wait.
Wait a minute, go out and play, or like go to the mall, or?
We've got to we're probably going to go to Lowe's and pick up some gutters. We're going to make some gutter gardens for Mother's Day for the wife and the grandmothers. So we picked up some annuals and some other flowers and so forth yesterday from the greenhouse, but now we need to go get some gutters.
Well, that sounds interesting. So you said, you're going to make like mini flower gardens inside of a gutter?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And is it for like windowsill stuff, or?
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly. You just basically get a long piece of guttering, and you can cut it up into whatever sizes you want, and then you can kind of mount it wherever you want, like windowsills, or and that's probably what we'll do. We actually might mount some up on our front porch railing, just to give some additional color. So real easy to make.
Okay, now would that be something where you have to do annuals in there, or what types of flowers or plants are you doing?
Yeah, it's got to be something that grows pretty shallow, like an annual. So that's primarily what we're going to do. I think my other daughter wants to experiment with maybe I think maybe she got some seeds for like some sugar peas or something like that. I'm not sure if she ended up getting those or not, but I might experiment with something like that. But yeah, it's got to be something that can grow pretty shallow.
All right, so no inside stuff like tomatoes or?
No. Unfortunately, tomatoes, since they vine up, you got to have somewhere that they can grow against.
Listen, I don't know anything. I'm just pretending to know stuff about it. So my Mother's Day is going to be a card that we sent in the mail yesterday, and I think we're ordering flowers.
Okay.
And then we're going to do a Zoom meeting.
There you go. No, I heard that flowers are kind of hard to come by this year. Like 1-800-Flowers, they're saying, get your orders in early. I'm not doing any of that, so I didn't really pay that much attention. But I think the flower harvest was minimal, and then with all
Mm.
the quarantine crap going on across the world, it was making it more difficult, and costs were going up even more than they normally do on Mother's Day.
I'll do a check. Proflowers.com is where we usually do our stuff. So we'll see if they come back with anything, and maybe we'll just have to send a real present, and because we can't. My mom lives 2 hours and 15 minutes away, so
Okay.
there's not going to be a visit, and my sister was going to think of driving up there with my two nephews, but mom is older, and the nephews probably have something that we shouldn't allow them around the grandmother.
Gotcha.
So even if they don't have the COVID, they may have something else. So, well, if anybody's interested, so proflowers.com doesn't even seem to be coming up. So maybe their site is
Wow.
crashed.
Everybody's
Nope,
just
there
waiting
it
till the
is.
last minute.
Of course. Well, actually, I had to be told that we need to do something for Mother's Day. That's how in tune I am right now.
Yeah.
That's a joy. All right. So, all right. So we had a big old VoIP discussion there. That sounds out good. See how that goes. All right. Any major things happen in the past week? Any good stories or tips or?
The one that comes to mind most is don't put off stuff. I know it seems so simple, but I've had a few things over the past, I'd say 6 months that if I had acted sooner, it would have worked out better. My wife, she was actually just diagnosed with MS back in December, and that was also when we were going through, switching health insurance. We were going over to the marketplace from, her former employer and all this other stuff. And I was looking at the marketplace for a plan, and I was talking to a guy in my BNI group who does health insurance benefits, and he was saying that he can get us set up, and he can also set us up with like kind of a supplemental plan that will help with if you go into the hospital and all this other stuff. And I was actually getting ready to do it. This is all happening like right at Thanksgiving time. And then my wife goes into the hospital and is diagnosed with MS. And if I had pulled the trigger literally a couple days before, we would have come out far better financially in terms of having that plan in place, having better insurance in place, and having, like an Affleck type of supplemental coverage in place. And so don't put off those kind of things, even though they're not a major fire burning in front of your face right now. You really don't drag your feet. And that's unfortunately what I did there. And I also dragged my feet on the first round of the PPP loans and so forth, and I missed out on the first round. Fortunately, actually, I just got notification that a few days ago that my PPP loan during the second round of funding has actually been approved. So I'm very fortunate there. But again, I dragged my feet. I was so busy the first handful of weeks of quarantine. I wasn't paying any attention to anything other than all the fires that were right in front of me with all my
Right.
clients and getting them all set up and all the rest of that. Yeah, I mean, I heard about all this, the PPP loans and all these grants and so forth, and I just wasn't really paying that much attention to it. And then when I did, suddenly everything's, all dried up for the most part.
Interesting, because I didn't even look into them. We've got money, emergency fund both for the business and for the house, and I figured, worst case scenario, if no customers paid me, I think we can go 4 months, but I still have customers that are paying. So as
Sure.
long as they're paying, I'm not going to reach in and, tap money that I don't necessarily need, or, why get a loan if I don't need it, sort of a thing. So that's where I was. But let me go back and ask. So how is the wife, by the way? Because
She's actually doing pretty well. She's managing her MS. That it's one of those diseases where you just manage it
right.
as best you can. So she's doing quite well now. It was very, very rough time over the holidays, from right about Thanksgiving to New Year. She was in the hospital a few times, and so it was tough, but we're over that, and things are going pretty
All right.
darn well.
Well, I asked because I've been going through something similar with my wife, having to be in the hospital, and we went through a lot of the same stuff at the end of last year, trying to get new insurance, and that sucks. And I mean, she spent probably 2 months going back and forth with the insurance papers. Now, we didn't go through Marketplace. We went through the gentleman that we got through the ASCII group.
Okay.
But, we still had to change plans. So
Right.
let me ask, how was that experience for you? Because for us, technically I have 2 employees. I have the wife, she's, in the business, but we had to get insurance on the personal side. We couldn't get it through the business. Was that your experience, or how did you do it?
No, through the Marketplace, I was able to get the family plan up and running, and it is being paid for through the business.
Okay.
It was just, all things considered, it was the worst timing possible. Both, like I said, with me kind of dragging my feet on signing the paperwork with this plan. Like I said, if I had gotten that supplemental plan, it would probably save me several $1,000s, all things considered, because how they help pay co-pays and so forth. Can't do anything about that now, but it's one of those things where you got to learn your lessons and move on. But it was just a major pain with the timing. It was really weird because my wife, she had been working last year. And when she had stopped working in the summer, we stayed on under COBRA with her health benefits for the family. And because I figured, we'll do that through the end of the year when the Marketplace opens back up for open enrollment. Well, the weird thing is the way that her former company did their benefits is they did it from end of November to through the following year. So December 1st was the start of their new plan. Well, the Marketplace, goes from January to end of December. So we had to basically jump on with the new her former employer for 1 month under the new plan, and then jump over to the Marketplace. Well, when your year ends, you start a new deductible period, and of course that's all during the time that she's in the hospital. So it's really crappy timing. So I went, had December a new deductible period with the former insurance, and then in January started a new deductible period under the Marketplace. So just the pains of being self-employed.
Yes, it is. And that's why I asked to see what you were doing, because I remember her on the phone all the time and having to come in and grab me real quick and ask me questions. And it was annoying. And of course, so now we're getting the bills. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're getting the statements of, this claim has been submitted, and,
Right.
200 here, 400 there, 16,000 here. And
Yep.
I have no idea what's covered yet. So it's going to be interesting.
Yep. And we also had a problem where when she was in the hospital for about a week's time, she got very poor treatment. They treated her with steroids, and they over-treated her, and which ultimately led to some other issues, and she ended up having to have her gallbladder taken out right at the end of the year. So there might be some, I don't want to say lawsuit issues involved here, but we're kind of disputing their charges right now because, it was like, I want to say $17,000 is our portion of her hospital stay from early December, and I'm telling them, I'm not going to pay that much because you guys didn't treat her correctly.
Right.
So that's currently under review, and who knows what will be decided by the time it's all said and done. I certainly don't want to have to get lawyers involved, but
well, you may have to. I know that if ours ends up being, like that, because we did have a situation as well. Also, when she first went in and got admitted, I'm just going to say it. I don't care anymore. But so when we went in, we had to go into the ER because it was like 5 a.m. And the person that checked us in looked at her and, made a comment, oh, she's a couple of quarts low and this and that. And then as we went into the ER, and then, the nurses come in And then the doctor finally came in, and the doctor came in and was just kind of like, well, let's run an EKG and this and that, and nothing related to why she came in. And the nurses actually had to tell the doctor, you need to do this. And then they got another doctor, like a senior doctor, to come over and confirm. And so my thought is, okay, you're not mischarging us for all this stuff because, you know, and I don't want to say he misdiagnosed her, but it was almost like he just kind of, you could, you know, he was like, I don't have time for this. And I'm like, that's not the way that should work.
Right.
Yeah, in an ER. You don't come in and just kind of dismiss stuff and have to be told by nurses what to do.
It's kind of funny because it's very similar to what happened with us. I mean, my wife, she had been having symptoms of ultimately MS since probably September, and she'd gone to her family practitioner, you know, a handful of times, and he, you know, did blood work and this, that, and the other, and wasn't finding anything. And she actually figured it out back at about Thanksgiving time. She's like, I think I've got MS. She, you know, she was just Googling her symptoms and ultimately, you know, kind of figured it out. But the problem is, you know, you got to go into a neurologist, and that takes, you know, in some cases months to get an appointment with one. So, and she was just starting to kind of melt down and also get worse with her symptoms. So, her doctor said, well, you can go into the ER and then they can do I think it was a CT scan, and they can determine whether you got it or not. So that's what we decided to do. We went into the ER on a Friday night in early December, and they said, well, we can do not a CT scan. We can do an MRI, but we can't do a CT scan. So the MRI won't determine whether you got MS, but it will determine if you maybe have something else like a brain tumor or something like that. So they did some of those tests and so forth and found, you know, no tumors and so forth. But they said, you know, we can't really do the CT scan right now. You're going to have to go to a neurologist. And I said, well, can she be admitted? And I didn't actually think that they were going to, but surprisingly, they admitted her because they were telling us all along that the CT scan can't be done through the ER. Well, fast forward literally a day and a half later, just sitting around in a hospital room, twiddling our thumbs, waiting for a CT scan. And we're finding out from, you know, the actual hospital staff saying, oh yeah, the ER could have done the CT scan. I don't know why they didn't. So we basically ended up getting charged like a day and a half of just sitting around. And that's part of my dispute with the hospital. I said, I'm not going to pay for you guys, you know, basically jerking us around. Because we heard the reason why we couldn't get in to get the CT scan once we were admitted into the hospital is because the ER is taking up all that CT scan time with other patients. So, and then, like I said, the mistreatment, the over prescribing of steroids. I mean, she had a real rough time. But
all right, well, didn't mean to take up all of the showtime with this, but it sounds like we have very similar stories, and you know, my wife is still going through stuff, and we're going to have to deal with all of that as well. But you're right; these are the things that we have to deal with as, you know, technically self-employed businesses.
Right.
You know, doesn't matter what our designation is. I mean, I'm an S corp. I don't know which. Are you an LLC?
Actually, LLC, but and that was one of the things that I've been dragging my feet on a little bit, you know, because the first part of the year was so crazy busy. I talked with my CPA, and I am going to be transferring over to an S corp and doing some additional things there, but I dragged my feet. So that's my project work, not for next week, but the following week, is to finally get all that crap straightened out, get onboarded with him under you know, a proper bookkeeping. Because, you know, as being self-employed, I've just been keeping the books myself for all these years, and I'm tired of it. I want to be able to just, you know, basically cut checks, you know, for taxes and for payroll and so forth, and let him deal with, you know, all the ins and outs of it, and just tell me what I owe, and because I'm tired of trying to keep up with it.
So that's another discussion. I mean, what's driving your decision to move from LLC to S corp?
Taxes. I can limit my tax liability by being part of an S corp. one of the things that I need to be careful of being in the marketplace is I cannot make but so much money this year, because if I make more than, I think it's 120 or $125,000 this year, then I have to pay back all the marketplace health insurance benefits.
Okay.
That I think it's like 120 or $125,000 is like the cliff that it's kind of a graduated plan, but then once you hit that, you hit the cliff and you got to pay it all back. So I've got to be careful about tax liability and how much money I make. So I need his assistance in making sure I don't make too much money. So one of the other things that I'm also looking at doing is, in order to help, again, keep in some ways keep my expenses a little higher, is I'm going to have the business buy a vehicle. So I'm currently looking at some vehicles that I'll probably have the business buy to be, my company car. So
all right.
Having an S corp will help with that.
Well, I can tell you early on, I went through this, and that's a lot of the reason why I decided to do an S corp from the beginning, is to do all of those liability things and to make it to where, I could pay myself a salary. Not do what some people do, where they pay themselves way too low a salary and then, try to pull out everything in dividends or whatever. But there's a lot of tax benefits to, paying yourself a salary, and the extra money that you take out as dividends is not taxed the same. And, it doesn't count against your income in the same way. So, in the case that you're talking about, not making too much money, you can have the business absorb a lot of that stuff.
Right.
And it doesn't count against your personal. So
exactly.
That's a good show. I should try to get somebody on to do, talk about the benefits. Because here's the thing. Most people, and the reason I asked you the question about what's making you change, most people, once they make the decision, they never go back and change.
Right.
So that's why I asked that, to, that may help somebody, who is in a similar situation. They may think, well, maybe I can switch. So.
Well, one of the reasons why I didn't change to an S corp years ago, because I had a different CPA originally, and ultimately I found that I did not get a lot of good advice from that person. And we had talked about S corp, and they said, yeah, you can save money in taxes by being an S corp, but you've got to hold meetings. Even if you're the only person at the meeting, you still got to record all these.
The annual meeting, annual report.
Exactly. But with my current CPA, he said, no, that it's nowhere near as complicated as it sounds. He's like, it's basically a document that we can sign. And, there's really not much more to it than that. We just say that, you are the president or the CEO, and, you had an annual meeting at such and such time. And, there's really not much more to it than that.
Here's your stock status and all of that.
Exactly. And he said, the other thing is, again, back to something like with a car, or, a large expense like that. He said, all you got to do is just basically draft a letter, and then as the CEO, sign it, and then keep it in with your corporate documentation, that the company is going to buy a vehicle for you to use. And that's all there really is to it. So I think a lot of it comes down to, and, other solo guys out there, you need to make sure you find the right person to give you the right advice. Just when you think about it, just like we are, we know that the quality in MSPs and, IT guys out there vary greatly, and their opinions and what is necessary vary greatly. So, us as advisors, we are experts to our small businesses. So, that small business is putting a lot of trust and faith in you that you are giving them the right advice. And so, we know that not all IT guys are created equal. So I guess that just goes to show you not all lawyers and CPAs and so forth are equal too.
Well, absolutely. I learned that because I also had some bad advice in the beginning, and ending up owing, $4,000 to the IRS. And if I'd have had the right advice, I wouldn't have had that issue.
Yep.
So, Always a good thing. So yeah, maybe I should make a list of shows that we can do for, you know, things to do in your business. Be smart, whether you're solo tech or MSP, making those decisions, such as an LLC, S corp, having an accountant. That's something
Right.
I decided early that I needed to make sure my books were right, because I never want to have money issues ever.
Exactly.
I shouldn't say it that way. Maybe not money issues, because we can all have them, but I don't ever want to be audited
Right.
without the proper documentation. I've seen some of my customers get audited, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we are coming up to the end of lunch. I don't know if we have time to go into a Florida man deal, but you had any good Florida man stories up in Virginia or Virginia man?
To be honest, nothing comes to mind. I'm sure I'll think of several right off, as soon as we hang up, but nothing comes to mind. No, actually, I take that back. All right. So I listened to a radio show, a morning show. It's actually out of LA, and they do redneck news. Just news that jumps out at them, and they call it redneck news. And of course,
Okay.
you guys in Florida are featured quite regularly.
We got a lot of rednecks in Florida.
Absolutely. Well, the cool thing is this radio show, they'll basically take all those redneck news stories throughout the year, and then at the end of the near the end of the year, they'll have like a playoff round where the listeners will vote on what's the most redneck news story, and they'll have categories. Redneck news involving, of course, Walmart. Redneck news involving Florida. Redneck news involving meth. And all these stories, and then at the end of the year they'll vote and they'll come up with the most redneck news story of the year. But anyways, the one that kind of pertains to us was a pastor here in Virginia. He basically said he's not going to cancel church. He wants everybody to still come, and this was earlier on in the quarantine, and he was defying the authorities, and he was going to be arrested. Well, he's not arrested now because he's dead from getting corona. It's just I personally have faith, but I also know that we as humans have free will, and God gives us that power to have free will and make decisions. And as such, there are things out there that he's not going to step in and stop. Right. So I think that pastor made a poor decision for both himself, obviously, but for his parishioners. It's just, you got to be smart. Got to be smart and safe during those times.
Yep, got to be. So the problem is I can never pick just one Florida man story, because we have so many happening right now. And I mean, so much that they're making the national news. I mean, the CNN just covered the one, I don't know if you've seen this, but the, where's it, Miami? Yeah, Miami Beach, where the video has gone viral with the guy throwing a tantrum because he was trying to go into a Publix without a mask, and they stopped him, and he literally, like a baby, threw a tantrum and tried to claim that, this is a false flag in the U.S. and there's no pandemic and this, and I mean, it's just having a fit of tantrum. But I mean, the other one though, I was going to say, so a guy in Port Orange, Florida, which is on the other side of the state from Fort Lauderdale, got in trouble for stealing gator meat and other stuff from an outside freezer of a store. Now, first of all, having your freezers for your store outside, on the outside, does that not sound redneck?
That's redneck. Yep, absolutely.
So he stole all this meat and everything, and he got identified because of a gator license plate. So he got caught because of that. So I'm like, okay, you're going to steal gator meat, but have a gator tag that everybody can identify you from. And
I bet you if you look closer, he's got a gator tattoo of some kind.
Probably. I mean, not to say that if you're a Florida Gator, you're an idiot, but I root for FSU. Just and the funny thing is his wife actually was the one who turned him in.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, she called the police and confirmed the license plate and his facial features and tattoos, and they came out, searched the property, and arrested him. So,
you think she's going to get a reward?
She'll probably get free gator meat. Here, keep it. So, all right, Kevin. Well,
crime solvers will give her a cash reward for that.
Yeah. All right, sir. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And I know that people are starting to get back to lunch, and I know that or work, I should say. We're doing this on our lunch break, so I got to get back to work as well. And thank you again. And we shall definitely follow up. I do want to hear more on what you decide with the VoIP stock and see if
Absolutely.
you look into free PBX. And I had other questions on like the untangle and stuff, but we can talk about that at another time. And then definitely we will need to keep in touch and share update stories on our wives and the hospital stuff. So we'll do that.
Well, I've met your wife at some of the conventions, so tell her I'm sending her my best wishes and thoughts. So
all right,
good luck to you guys.
We'll do. So everyone out there listening, we've just had a Friday Live with Kevin Boynton, the computer doctor of Richmond. And if you like this show, support the show. Head over to podnutz.com and listen to some of the other shows. Head over to the show note page that I put up and click on Amazon and do some shopping. You would normally shop at Amazon. The prices don't change for you, but when you do, after using the link, we'll get a little money back, and that'll pay for some of the web hosting and stuff like that. If you have any questions or suggestions or show topics or anything, email marvin@podnutz.com. You can follow us on the Twitter, the sign @PodnutzPro, and we're also on the YouTube at PodnutzPro as well. So be sure to follow the show, and hopefully we're giving you stuff to make your business better, stronger, and faster. So, Kevin, thank you very much. And
Thanks for the time.
It's gonna do it for the show, folks. And we'll see you back here soon. Until then, holla.